listening to the Encouraging Faith podcast, doing ministry together across generational gaps.
Hey, we're here with Encouraging Faith. I'm Doug Munton. I'm the pastor at First Baptist Church of O'Fallon, Illinois for 29 plus years. And I'm with my friend here who is
Mariano. How are you guys doing? Good to see you guys.
Mariano Sarabia. He doesn't like to say his last name. He's worried you'll, look him up.
Me up.
But Mariano is a student pastor. And we're going to talk about we've talked about a lot of generational things, but we're going to talk today about faithfulness and fruitfulness. And notice I'm not saying faithfulness versus fruitfulness. I'm saying faithfulness and fruitfulness. And they really do go together, don't they, Mariano?
They do.
So here's the problem. I think there are many involved in ministry of some sort. Vocational pastors, vocational ministers, even people who are teaching a life group or Sunday school class, some sort of discipleship, who think they only think of one side or the other. They think of one side or the other. So they either are like really concerned about faithfulness but don't care at all about fruitfulness, or they care deeply about fruitfulness, which I'll call effectiveness sometimes, and not at all, and they're unfaithful to the Lord, and both of those matter. So let's talk about the danger of one versus the other, just kind of in general, all right? So what's the problem with somebody being really, how about somebody, you ever seen anyone super effective, fruitful as can be, but they're not very faithful to the Lord? What's the problem? Mariano, come on.
Yeah, they're focused on the wrong thing. The fruitfulness, I think it comes with the faithfulness.
Yeah, have you seen somebody, Mariano, who, a pastor, you ever heard of a pastor who fell in some way into sin or something?
Yeah.
And they might have been super fruitful. They might have been super effective. Yeah. God uses, in Texas, here's how they say it, Mariano, back in the old days. I'm from Illinois, back in Illinois now. But in the old days, I was in Texas. Went to seminary in Texas, pastored there. So back in the old days, they used to say this. They would say, God can hit a straight lick with a crooked stick. And what they meant was God can use people who are imperfect to, accomplish his purposes. So, but man, when they fall, you've seen guys fall?
Yeah, unfortunately, too many.
Yeah. Some really guys God has used, guys who have been sometimes really faithful at one time, but they stopped being faithful. And that scares me. It scares me for me, and it scares me for your generation too. Yeah. You think your generation is a little bit jaded about the fall of pastors and stuff? Or?
Yeah, I think those in ministry are jaded, but also just those that actively going to church, they've seen people that they look like they have it all figured out on the outside. Yeah. But there's major heart issues where they were obsessed with that fruitfulness and effectiveness in a way that they weren't being faithful with the small things, like being in God's word. And
so I've prayed this way. Maybe you have, Mariano. I prayed sometimes, God, would you kill me before I embarrass your name, unfaithful to my wife or something. And I'm afraid he'd leave me alive, because it'd just be so terrible to just shame his name. Yeah. And how about you? Have you thought about have you thought about your own faithfulness? Because you're still young.
Yeah.
What are you, 14, 13?
25.
Oh, 25, that's right.
But I think
you got that beard. That's what tells me you're
it's
not.
helped me growing it out a little bit.
Did you have it when you were 12 or 13? You have that beard? Okay,
no.
All right, keep going.
Yeah, so with myself, I want to have accountability. I'm constantly thinking about having kind of accountability in people in my life where I can be vulnerable, because I know that Satan wants to isolate me and make me feel so good about myself and feel like that I have it figured out, and that then there's room for me to sin. You
know who you got to be most accountable to, though, is just to you and the Lord.
Yeah.
And I say that because I have a friend who fell some years ago, and he would say I was his accountability partner. He never really told me the truth about anything along the way.
That's good.
How would I know? And he didn't want me to know. So and accountability does help. It does. Having someone you can talk to about things does help. But man, I just want you to run just a little bit scared, because we are capable. One of the reasons I haven't yet done one of these atrocious things is because I know that I'm capable of doing terrible things. I know I'm capable. Yeah. The old nature's still there. I still have the battle. I know it's there, and that's part of what keeps me kind of I don't want to forget that I'm capable. I don't want to think, that guy must have been, he must have been so so much more wicked than me. I mean,
Yeah.
I just know I'm capable of running from the Lord or doing the wrong things. And that's part of what keeps me, like, I want to stay close to him. And part of why I stay close to him is because I know I'm capable of not being close to him.
Yeah, you never want to get caught up with that mindset of, oh, that couldn't have been me.
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk about, so some guys are effective and fruitful, but they're not very faithful. And that's horrible. Let's talk about the other side. What if because there are I think there are just gobs of pastors, like Sunday school teachers, life group teachers, ministry leaders who are faithful. They love the Lord, and they're really trying to follow him, but they're not very effective. So, like, should that even matter? Should we care about whether we're fruitful, you reckon? Did you hear me say reckon? That's a good word, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
use that for a while.
Texas roots are coming back
I don't know. No, it's my Southern Illinois roots.
Is that a Southern Illinois thing?
I don't know. My mom and dad both just said they were both grew up on the farm. And anyway, so let's reckon a little bit, and you tell me what's wrong with it. What do you think?
So I think we should be fruitful, but I don't think we can't base our worth off
That's
our
right.
fruit.
We don't base our worth on our effectiveness.
Yeah.
But like, I think there are probably a number of guys who are in ministry who, like, they say, I don't even care. I just want to be close to the Lord, faithful to him. I don't care whether I'm effective.
Yeah, and that's the wrong mindset.
That is the wrong. Paul said, I try to persuade people. He didn't say, I just share the gospel, whatever happens, what happens. I mean, he knew he couldn't save anyone. Of course, he knew that. But he cared about them enough that he said, I want to reach them. So he was passionate, like persuasive, caring, involved. I mean, and so I just want to say to you who are faithful, God bless you, but don't stop there.
Yeah.
Like, don't just say, all God wants is for me to be, like to, I don't know, have read my Bible. God cares about me caring about people. He does care about me caring about people. And really, ministry is not, it's about both my relationship with the Lord and my relationship with other people. And so I think we ought to care about reaching people. We should never compromise faithfulness in order to be effective. Never.
Yeah.
But we should always see these two as like companions, I think.
They were together.
Yeah.
I think of John 15:8. I wrote that down.
You wrote John 15:8, or
wrote it down in my notes.
You just wrote it down.
By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. That in our own lives are to bear fruit, and through faithfulness in ministry, we should see fruit as well. But I want us to think about, I know you had lots of ministry experience before FBCO. So was there ever a time in ministry when you found it maybe challenging to stay faithful because you weren't seeing fruit? Because I'm sure on the other end, maybe someone's listening to this that they feel like I'm being faithful and I'm trying, but I'm not seeing fruit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't had a time in my life where I like rebelled against the Lord in the big ways. Now, plenty of times when I've forgotten about the Lord or not had my devotional life like I should, that sort of thing. But I haven't had that kind of unfaithfulness. But I have had times when I think I was discouraged about being effective, or just discouraged about it. And there have been times, and of course, I can hardly remember before being here. I'm in my 30th year here now at First Baptist O'Fallon, Illinois. By the way, we're suburbs of St. Louis, but we're on the Illinois side. So there have been times when it's just been really great, and then times when it's been harder. And I think I've been discouraged in it, and so maybe that's a little of what you're asking. Have there been times when I've been
discouraged?
Yeah. Absolutely, and probably it's good for every pastor, every Sunday school teacher to note that there are times when you are like some things are beyond my control. I can't I think if let's face it, we're not in some area of the country where people are just moving in here in droves. I think if we had the population doubling in 10 years, that'd be one thing. It's not us. That's not us now, right?
Yeah.
So that's beyond my control. I can't decide that. I mean, Illinois, I love Illinois. Our taxes are a little high, I mean, that's a fair statement to make, a little high. And some people decide, hey, I can pay less taxes somewhere else. And some businesses just decide to go somewhere else. So there's nothing I can control. But I can control what I do on my part. And if I focus on that, I tend to get it right. What I am reminding guys of is God cares about me doing the best I can to glorify Him. And the best I can, maybe the best I can do is not the same. I don't have the same talent someone else has, the same sort of skill set they have, but the Lord can work in me, through me. He can accomplish His purposes. So, yeah. All right. Good. So, Mariano, let's talk just a little bit about faithfulness and then fruitfulness, just a little bit. So, faithfulness. What helps you to stay faithful to the Lord? What kinds of things do you do that say this helps me to be where I need to be with God? Anything jump to your mind?
Yeah. So I think you've already touched on it a bit, but keeping a humble spirit. So reminding myself that I can be sinful.
You need the Lord. You need the Lord.
Yeah. I need God. I have to rely on Him. And I think second would be that accountability with others.
Okay.
So making sure that I have people that I'm confessing sin or that are pushing me or challenging me.
How about your devotionals and your spiritual disciplines? How's that? Does that play into it a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So I need to be in my word. If I'm going to pour into people, I have to be poured into the Lord through my personal quiet time every day.
Yeah. So one of the things that's intimidating about guys who are preaching all the time now, I preach every Sunday morning virtually, and Mariano preaches on Sunday nights to the teenagers here at our church. And man, Sunday comes pretty regular. Have you noticed that? Yeah. And then we have other things that we do. Wednesday nights, I preach another message on Wednesday nights, and Mariano has all kinds of things. If you're not like taking in regularly, you're going to get dry. Yeah. It happens for a lot of guys. And the same with you're teaching a Sunday school class. I mean, you want to be bringing in, really, in a sense, more than you're giving out, I guess.
Sure.
All right. Your spiritual disciplines, they matter to you. Spending time alone with the Lord. And then every once in a while, maybe something even like fasting or something that really separates you for a little bit from all the other distractions of life. Those are healthy things for me in my life, and they help me keep close to the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think I bet, in a sense, this is so critically important, your faithfulness to the Lord. But in a sense, for a lot of ministry leaders, this is the easier part in one sense, because that's why when they got into ministry, for most guys, when they became a Sunday school teacher or a life group teacher, taught discipleship class, they did it because they loved the Lord. So let's talk about the one that can sometimes be a little more challenging for us, which is how do we learn to be fruitful? What things help us to be faithful and fruitful? So, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, immediately I think of being willing to evaluate yourself.
I like that.
Yeah. So, you might instinctively at first be like, I'm doing all I can. But taking a moment to say, am I actually being effective with the things I'm doing?
It's kind of the hardest thing for us to do, too. I think it's hard for us to be honest with ourselves. So, like, I ask, we'll talk about preaching in a subsequent podcast, but I ask Vicki after every sermon, I said, how'd you like the sermon? And she, you know what she says?
It was great.
She says it was terrible. No, she doesn't. She always says, it was great because she loves me. She always says how great it was. Well, I mean, all right. But I have to be the one who says, I didn't connect like I could have. I mean, I didn't think about applying it well in this, and evaluating is good. So let me tell you some things I just wrote down when I talked about fruitful. I said, I think you ought to take initiative. A lot of guys are really passive instead of taking initiative. Like, go get them. I said, I wrote down, do hard things.
Yeah.
Like, there's some hard things. Once in a while, there's a hard text we have to preach, and it takes some work, but you got to be willing to do hard things. I said, do little things, the little things. So I'm going to go football on you for a minute. Even though your San Francisco 49ers are having a hard time, it's just I say a hard time. They're still really good. It's just they're
really
not
hurt.
But So a football coach, like, we think of them just in the big picture. We think, do they call the timeout at the right time? The little things matter. The little nuances of football. The little, how far, when you pitched, how far, that pitch out, how did the guy, was the running back too close?
Yeah.
Those little things, those details make the difference. And good football coaches coach all of those things. The technique, we call it. And I think in ministry, like, what are the little things? Am I creating an atmosphere? When someone walks in the door of the church building, is it like dead? Nobody says hello to him. We act like they're, or do we? That's a little thing, right? But it's something that matters. If someone comes in as a first time, they're scared to death. shouldn't we care about that person? A lot of pastors, Sunday school teachers, they don't think about those little things like they ought to, and then they won't have faith, of course, that God can use someone like you.
Yeah.
What any of those things you want to bloviate on?
Well, I had in my mind about being passive could really affect your ministry negatively, and so you need to take initiative and be willing to grow and to change. And I think part of that is evaluation. So personally, I ask. There's a couple of trusted people in my life that I'm willing to say, hey, what do you think I can work on, and what am I not being effective in?
What's a passive pastor look like versus an active pastor?
Yeah, maybe someone that's not handling conflict
when they should. Yeah. They say, I'm just going to not do anything and hope it works out instead of dealing with it like they should.
Yeah.
How about a Sunday school teacher? If they're passive instead of active, what might they do?
They're coasting on a Sunday, maybe not actively reaching out to the roster.
Yeah, someone comes to attend and they never even contact them ever again. Like they act as though they never even cared about the person. Yeah, those things. Yeah. That's a common thing in ministry too. I just kind of want to remind you that in ministry, it is easy for us. It's sort of the default for a lot of us to be passive. We're like Adam, just Eve's getting tempted, and he doesn't intervene. He's passive at a moment that was really important, and I've seen men this way all of my life. Passive husbands, instead of expressing love to their wife, instead of understanding her, instead of leading the way and apologizing where necessary or whatever, they're passive. Passive fathers.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The scourge of America is passive fathers who aren't involved in their kids' lives, and I think that happens in ministry as well, men and women. But man, you pastors know how dangerous it is, because sometimes it's hard work to be active. Risky. You don't have to do anything to be passive, and you have to do something to be active, right? That's the definition. But being active is so much better, and it allows us to be a part of what God's doing. God accomplishes His works. He can do it around us just as easily as He can do it with us, I know. But the Lord loves to use us in His work.
Yeah.
And I think when we're active, when we say, God, I've got that, whatever you want me to do, God, that's what I want to do. Wherever you want me to be, that's when God sends somebody into our life, because He just entrusts that soul with us and says, I'm gonna put you in this position to talk to that guy because I know you will, and I know I'm gonna let you be involved. And God could do it all without us. Yeah. But He loves to use us.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, man, Mariano, this whole discussion, it's an important one. A lot more, I just notice in ministry life, we just don't talk about desiring to be effective like we ought to. And I want to, listen, don't get me wrong, faithfulness matters just as much. Those two go together. In fact, it won't matter how, it is even more important that you be faithful, of course.
Yeah. But
don't lose the corollary. Out of our faithfulness to God is our obedience to Him in doing what He's called us to do to the best of our abilities. So if He's called you to preach, preach well. If He's called you to teach well. If He's called you to clean the church building, clean it to His glory. And I think that's a better way to live. Yeah. Any last words you got for us, Mariano?
Yeah, I just think as a pastor, just continue to bridge that gap, be faithful, but also be willing to have drive, willing to get the grit and work through hard things. And Noah built his ark for a long time before he saw the fruit.
That's right. So that is exactly right. Well, this is Encouraging Faith Podcast, and I'm Doug Munton, and this is Mariano Sarabia. We're at First Baptist Church, O'Fallon, Illinois, in the suburbs of St. Louis. We're just glad to share a few thoughts with you. I hope God will use you in great ways. We're praying that God will bless you, whatever ministry you're involved in, whatever way God's called you to serve Him well. Be faithful to Him. Be effective for His glory. Do what you can. There are things outside of your control, but you do what you can for His glory, and God will honor and bless that.
Yeah.
Hope you have a great day.